She was alive because of my kidney, yet she chose my greatest day to destroy me. I will never forget that moment. The hall was glittering with golden chandeliers, laughter echoing off the walls, cameras flashing like lightning. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The man of my dreams was standing at the altar, waiting for me, and hundreds of eyes were watching. But then she walked in, dressed in the whitest, most expensive gown I had ever seen. A gown that was supposed to be mine. Her hand was locked in his. My fiancé, my best friend's fiancé no more, because now he belonged to her. And in that moment, as gasps filled the air and whispers turned sharp as knives, my heart tore open. I felt the scar along my side burn, the one that came from surgery years ago. The one that proved I had given her life. I had given her my kidney. And now, she chose this day, my day, to humiliate me. I stood frozen, my bouquet trembling in my hands, and all I could hear was her laughter. She had invited me here. She told me to come, to stand by her side as her maid of honor, to celebrate love. But love had been murdered right before my eyes. You want to know how it all began? How I ended up here, in this cruel circus of betrayal? Then listen closely, because what you're about to hear is not just a story of friendship gone wrong. It is a story of envy, blood, sacrifice, and revenge. Before I continue, don't forget to like, watch, comment, and subscribe for more. Because this story will leave you breathless. My name is Emily Carter. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knew your parents and your grandparents before you. My father, James Carter, was a mechanic who worked long hours fixing broken cars. My mother, Lisa, was a nurse at the local hospital. I was their only child, their miracle, because the doctors told my mom she couldn't have kids after a bad accident. But she did, she had me. I grew up surrounded by love. My parents were simple, hardworking people. They taught me kindness, honesty, and sacrifice. And maybe, just maybe, they taught me those lessons a little too well. Because those lessons became the very knife used to cut me open later in life. I met her when I was 6 years old. Her name was Rachel Miller. She had just moved into the neighborhood with her mom. Her dad had left them when she was little, and her mom was never around much, always chasing after work or boyfriends. Rachel was alone a lot. I was drawn to her immediately. She was loud, funny, wild. The kind of kid who climbed trees barefoot and jumped into rivers without looking. I was the opposite. Careful, quiet, always asking permission. We balanced each other out. Soon, we were inseparable. We had sleepovers every weekend, shared secrets, braided each other's hair, and made pinky promises under the stars that we'd be sisters forever. But as we grew older, I started to notice something. Rachel didn't just want to be close to me. She wanted to be me. If I got a new dress, she wanted one too. If a boy liked me, she suddenly liked him as well. She copied my handwriting, my laugh, even the way I walked. I thought it was flattering. I thought it was love. I didn't see it for what it really was, obsession. Then came the day everything changed. I was 16. Rachel collapsed in the middle of the school hallway. 1 minute she was laughing, the next she was on the ground, her lips turning blue. The ambulance came, and I rode with her, my hand gripping hers as she gasped for breath. At the hospital, the doctors told us the truth. Rachel's kidneys were failing. Without a transplant, she wouldn't survive. Her mother was a wreck. No relatives were a match. She was dying. And without thinking twice, I stepped forward. Test me, I told the doctors. Test me. And I was a match. I can still remember the look in Rachel's eyes when they told her. Relief. Hope. And something else I couldn't quite name. I thought it was gratitude. Now I know it was hunger. The surgery was brutal. They cut into me, took a part of me, and gave it to her. When I woke up, weak and pale, Rachel was already smiling again, her skin glowing, her laughter ringing through the room. She hugged me, cried on my shoulder, swore she would never forget what I had done. I owe you my life, she said. I'll never hurt you. But promises are fragile things. For a while, Everything seemed perfect. We grew closer than ever. She told everyone at school how I had saved her, how I was her angel. People whispered about us, the miracle friends. And I believed her. I believed every word. Until college. That's when the cracks began to show. Rachel was beautiful, and she knew it. She loved attention, thrived on it. Boys fell for her left and right. But if one of them even looked at me, she made sure to take him for herself. At first, I laughed it off. Then I started to wonder, why would my best friend, the girl whose life I saved, always want to hurt me like this? I didn't have the answer then. But I would get it later, on the worst day of my life. Because the boy she stole from me in college? He wasn't just any boy. He was Daniel Blake, the man who would later become my fiancé. And the man who, on the day that should have been mine, stood at the altar holding her hand instead of mine. But that betrayal wasn't the end. Oh no, it was just the beginning. Because what Rachel didn't know is that I wasn't the same girl anymore. The one who sacrificed, who forgave, who gave pieces of herself away. No. That girl was gone. The new me was going to make her pay. And it all started with one mistake she made that night. A mistake so dangerous it would land one of us in handcuffs and the other in a grave. The mistake Rachel made that night was simple, but deadly. She underestimated me. While she stood there in that dazzling gown, her diamond necklace catching the light, she thought she had broken me completely. She thought I would crumble, run away, maybe even faint from the humiliation. And truthfully, for a few seconds, I almost did. My knees shook, my chest was heavy, and I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. But instead, I watched. I forced myself to stand still, to breathe, to let the whispers swirl around me like daggers. And that's when I saw it, the crack in her perfect performance. Rachel's hand trembled slightly as she held Daniel's. Her smile faltered just a little too long. And her eyes flickered nervously toward me, as if checking to see if I'd collapse. That was her mistake. Because in that flicker, I realized something. She didn't just want Daniel. She didn't just want my happiness. She wanted to see me suffer. She wanted to see me broken, ruined. And that gave me all the fuel I needed. I stood tall, even though my heart was bleeding. I lifted my chin and smiled, an icy smile that sent a ripple through the crowd. People thought I was insane, but I wasn't. I was awake. For the first time in years, I saw Rachel for who she really was. Not my friend, not my sister, not even human in the way I knew human to be. She was a predator. And predators only stop when they're destroyed. But before I tell you how the night ended, you need to understand why Daniel was so important to me. Why his betrayal with Rachel cut deeper than the surgery scar on my body. I met Daniel Blake, my junior year in college. He was tall, charming, and had the kind of smile that made the whole world pause. Unlike Rachel, he didn't crave attention. He was quiet, thoughtful, and when he looked at me, it felt like he saw through all my scars and straight into my soul. At first, I didn't believe he liked me. I was plain compared to Rachel. My hair never stayed straight, my clothes were simple, and I never cared about being the prettiest girl in the room. But Daniel? He loved that about me. I don't need someone flashy, he once told me. I need someone real. And you, Emily, you're the realest person I've ever met. Those words melted me. For the first time in my life, I felt chosen. Not because I saved someone's life. Not because I was the safe, dependable friend. But because of me. Rachel noticed, of course. She always noticed. At first, she laughed about it, teased me about having a college boyfriend. But soon, I saw the shift. The way she lingered too long when Daniel visited, the way she laughed at his jokes louder than necessary, the way she started dressing up when she knew he'd be around. I should have been on guard. But love makes you blind. One night, Daniel and I had a fight. A stupid one, about me spending too much time studying and not enough with him. I went to bed angry, and Rachel offered to cheer him up. I trusted her so much that I actually encouraged it. Keep him company, I said. You're my best friend. That was the night I lost him. I didn't find out immediately. Rachel was careful, cunning. But over time, the signs appeared. Missed calls. Excuses. And then one night I saw them together. Not holding hands. Not kissing. Worse. Whispering. Laughing. Looking at each other the way I thought he only looked at me. The betrayal nearly killed me. But I swallowed it. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself Rachel wouldn't do this to me. She owed me her life. I told myself Daniel loved me, that maybe I was just imagining things. Denial is a powerful drug. Fast forward years later, and here we were, standing in a church filled with people. The truth was no longer something I could deny. They weren't just together. They had chosen my wedding day to reveal themselves. Rachel had turned my greatest joy into the sharpest knife. But here's where her mistake deepened. In her arrogance, she let her guard down. After the ceremony spectacle, there was a reception. And though every bone in my body screamed to run, I stayed. I sat at a table, watching them, my smile frozen in place while my heart tore itself apart. Guests whispered, some pitied me, others avoided me. Rachel thrived in the attention. Daniel looked dazed but compliant. And then she drank. Rachel had always been reckless with alcohol. And that night, she overdid it. Champagne after champagne, her laughter louder and wilder with every glass. She started bragging to strangers, to old classmates, to anyone who would listen. And then I heard it. The words that changed everything. She wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for me. Rachel slurred, pointing toward me with her glass. She thinks she saved me, but really? She just made herself weaker. Pathetic. Who gives away a kidney and then expects loyalty? She was always stupid. The room fell silent. The music kept playing, but the whispers spread like wildfire. People stared at me, at her, at us. My secret sacrifice, the one thing I thought bound us forever, was now being used as a weapon against me. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Instead, I stood up. Slowly, calmly, and I walked across the room toward her. Every step felt like thunder. Every breath, like fire. Rachel smirked, thinking she had won. Thinking she had humiliated me beyond repair. But as I reached her, I leaned close, my lips brushing her ear. You just made your last mistake, I whispered. She laughed. But she wouldn't be laughing for long. Because that night ended with police sirens, shattered glass, and one of us in handcuffs.
And it wasn't me.
The sound of sirens tore through the night like a scream no one could ignore. Red and blue lights splashed against the windows of the banquet hall, turning the once glamorous reception into a scene of chaos. Guests rushed to the doors, whispers turning into gasps, champagne glasses left half-finished on tables. And there, in the center of it all, was Rachel. Her white gown was stained with spilled wine, her hair undone from too much dancing and too much drinking. But the real damage wasn't in her appearance, it was in her hands. Her fingers were trembling, bleeding from where she had shattered a champagne glass against the floor during her drunken rant. Shards sparkled across the polished wood like broken diamonds, and a trail of crimson trickled down her wrist. The police stormed in. 2 officers pushed through the crowd, their radios crackling. One of them shouted, "Step away from her." For a split second, everyone thought they were talking to me. I could feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing on my back, judging, waiting. But then the officer walked straight past me and grabbed Rachel by the arm. "Rachel Miller," he barked. "You're under arrest." The room exploded with confusion. Rachel's face went pale. She tried to pull away, stammering. What? No, you don't understand. It's her. It's Emily, she. But it was no use. The cuffs clicked around her wrists, cold steel biting into her skin. The crowd gasped. Daniel rushed forward, his voice breaking. Wait, there must be some mistake. She didn't do anything. The officer turned to him, stone-faced. She's wanted for fraud and embezzlement. We've been tracking her for months. Tonight, she slipped. She used a stolen credit card to book part of this reception. It flagged our system. Gasps rippled through the room again. Fraud. Embezzlement. Stolen money. My mind spun trying to catch up. I knew Rachel loved expensive things, but I never imagined this. Rachel's eyes darted around wildly until they landed on me. And in that moment, all her arrogance, all her smugness vanished. She looked like a cornered animal, desperate and furious. "This is your fault," she screamed, struggling against the officers. "You set me up. You jealous little." Her words were cut short as they dragged her toward the doors. Cameras flashed, guests recording everything, immortalizing her humiliation. And for once, it wasn't me on display. It was her. I should have felt relief, justice, satisfaction. But instead, a knot tightened in my chest. Because as Rachel's eyes locked with mine one last time before the doors slammed shut behind her, I saw something that made my blood run cold. She wasn't broken. She wasn't defeated. She was promising revenge. The reception ended in chaos. Guests whispered about the scandal, some shaking their heads, others pitying Daniel, who looked like his world had just crumbled. The groom without a bride. The man who had chosen the wrong woman. And me? I walked out into the cool night air, my heart pounding. I should have been happy that Rachel was finally exposed, that the world could see her for who she truly was. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because Rachel wasn't the type to give up. And I was right. 2 days later, I woke up to find my face plastered all over the news. My name, my photo, my story. Except it wasn't my story, it was hers. Emily Carter under investigation. Organ trafficking allegations. I froze, the words burning into my brain. Organ trafficking? My stomach twisted violently as I read the article. Anonymous sources claimed I had pressured Rachel into the kidney surgery, that I had been involved in a black market ring, that I had sold her kidney to save her. Every sentence was a lie. Every word was poison. And I knew exactly who had planted it. Rachel. Even from behind bars, she was pulling strings. Even in handcuffs, she had found a way to drag me down with her. The police showed up at my parents' house later that afternoon. My mother's face went pale as they read me my rights. My father tried to fight them, shouting, demanding answers. But it didn't matter. The cuffs closed around my wrists just like they had around Rachel's. And as the neighbors watched, their eyes wide with judgment, I realized Rachel had already won the first battle. Because now I was the one in handcuffs. And my trial was about to begin. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the air, though the vents blew sharp streams against my skin, but the people. Their stares, their whispers, the way their eyes crawled over me as if I were already guilty. The bailiff called my name. Emily Carter, step forward. I stood, my hands trembling slightly, chains clinking at my wrists. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Laura Hayes, guided me toward the defense table. She whispered, "Keep your head up. Don't let them see fear." But how could I not be afraid? Rachel had twisted the truth so skillfully that even I almost believed it. Articles everywhere claimed I was part of a black market organ scheme. Reporters shouted questions as I was dragged through police lines. And the worst part? Some of the so-called evidence pointed straight at me. Bank transfers, false medical records, even a witness statement. Rachel had set a trap, and I'd walked right into it. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The gavel cracked like thunder. Court is now in session. The people versus Emily Carter. The prosecutor began his attack almost immediately. A man named Richard Clark, slick and confident, his voice like poison wrapped in honey. He painted me as manipulative, selfish, desperate for money. He claimed I had convinced Rachel to undergo the surgery only because I wanted financial gain from an illegal operation. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, pacing like a predator, "the defendant would have you believe she is a hero. But heroes don't forge medical documents. Heroes don't profit from organ trafficking. And heroes don't betray the very people they pretend to save." His words sliced through me. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but Laura placed a firm hand on mine. "Wait," she whispered. "Our turn will come." Then Rachel entered, dressed in an orange prison jumpsuit, but walking as though it were a gown. She held her head high, her hair neatly tied, her face painted with innocence. The jury's eyes softened immediately. She looked fragile, delicate, the picture of a victim. When she sat at the witness stand, I couldn't breathe. "Rachel Miller," Clark said smoothly, "tell the court what happened." Her voice cracked at just the right places, tears glistening on cue. "Emily was my best friend," she began. "She saved me, or so I thought. But later, I learned she hadn't done it for me. She did it to sell my kidney. I was just too young and naive to realize. She's been controlling me my whole life."
Lies.
Every word, a dagger. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. How could she? After everything I gave her? After bleeding for her? She was turning the jury against me, twisting the sacrifice that nearly killed me into a crime. Laura finally stood. "Ms. Miller," she said firmly, "isn't it true that you were recently arrested for fraud and embezzlement?" Rachel lowered her eyes, playing innocent. "I made mistakes, but that doesn't mean Emily isn't guilty of worse." The jury murmured. The judge banged his gavel. Laura pressed harder. "And isn't it also true that Emily never once received payment of any kind for her kidney? That she, in fact, lived in financial struggle while you thrived off luxury purchases made with stolen funds?" Rachel's jaw tightened. For the first time, her mask slipped, but she quickly recovered, forcing a tremble into her voice. "I only spent because I was trying to fill the emptiness she left in me. She used me." Gasps echoed. Even Laura looked thrown. Rachel was clever, twisting everything into an emotional plea. And then came the dagger to my heart. Rachel leaned forward, tears streaming, her voice breaking as she looked directly at me. "Emily once told me if I ever betrayed her, she would make me regret surviving. She said I owed her my life, and she would take it back if I didn't obey." The courtroom fell silent. All eyes turned to me. It was a lie, a cruel, vicious lie. But the way she said it, her trembling lips, her shaking hands, it sounded real. Too real. My father shouted from the benches, his voice echoing, "That's a lie. My daughter would never." The bailiff restrained him. My mother sobbed quietly, burying her face in her hands. And me? I sat frozen, as if the world had stopped spinning. The gavel slammed again. Order. Order in the court. When the session ended for the day, I was escorted back to the holding cell. Laura walked beside me, her jaw tight, her eyes sharp. "She's good," Laura muttered. "Too good. If we don't find a way to destroy her credibility, she's going to bury you alive." And as the cell door clanged shut behind me, I realized Rachel had taken everything, my love, my reputation, my freedom. But I still had one thing left, the truth. And if I had to drag her down into hell to prove it, I would. That night, as I lay on the hard cot staring at the ceiling, I made a silent vow. Rachel wanted war? Then she would get war. And the first battle would begin the next morning, when a witness stepped forward unexpectedly. A witness whose testimony would shock the courtroom, shake the jury, and put one of us on the path to prison forever. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed louder than before. Reporters crowded the steps outside, microphones thrust forward, shouting questions about the organ trafficking nurse and the betrayed best friend. Inside, the air was thick with judgment. Every juror's eye seemed to pierce my skin, waiting to see if I'd crack. I sat down at the defense table, chains cold against my wrists. Laura leaned close. "Keep calm. Whatever happens today, keep calm." I nodded, though my heart hammered like a drum. The judge entered. The gavel struck. Court is now in session. The prosecutor was about to continue his attack when suddenly, a man stepped into the courtroom. The bailiff moved toward him, but he raised a hand and spoke with quiet authority. "Your Honor," he said, "my name is Dr. Alan Morris. I request to testify as a witness." Whispers swept the room. I knew that name. Everyone in town did. He had been the lead surgeon during Rachel's transplant years ago. My surgeon. Rachel's surgeon. Rachel stiffened in her seat. For the first time, her calm mask cracked. The judge frowned. Dr. Morris, you weren't listed on either side's witness list. What is the purpose of your testimony? Dr. Morris cleared his throat. His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked toward me with something I hadn't seen in months: hope. Because I can prove that Emily Carter is not guilty of what she's being accused of. The room gasped. Clark, the prosecutor, sprang to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. This is highly irregular. He's not. The judge cut him off. Overruled. This case hinges on truth. If Dr. Morris has information, I will hear it. Proceed. Dr. Morris walked to the stand, placed his hand on the Bible, swore his oath, and sat. The courtroom leaned forward like one body, breathless. Tell us, Doctor, Laura urged, her eyes sharp as glass. What do you know about Emily Carter's surgery and the accusations against her? Dr. Morris took a deep breath. I was the attending surgeon when Emily Carter donated her kidney to Rachel Miller. I oversaw every step, every document, every test. And I can state, under oath, that Emily Carter received no payment, no profit, and no illegal involvement whatsoever. The procedure was entirely voluntary. The courtroom rippled with shock. Laura's lips curved into a faint smile. But Dr. Morris wasn't finished. There's more, he said, his voice tightening. Over the years, I began to notice irregularities in Rachel Miller's medical follow-ups. She would claim complications that didn't exist, request medications she didn't need, and even tried to manipulate records for insurance payouts. I kept quiet, but now I see what she was doing. She's been building a false narrative, planning this betrayal for years. The air exploded with noise. Reporters scribbled furiously. Jurors glanced at each other, whispers sharp. Rachel's face drained of color. He's lying, she screamed, leaping to her feet. He's covering for her. He's always liked Emily more than me. The judge slammed his gavel. Order. But Rachel kept shouting, her voice cracking, her body shaking. She's a monster. Don't you see? She only gave me that kidney so she could control me. She said I would owe her forever. She's obsessed with me. She's obsessed. The bailiff grabbed her, pulling her back into her seat. Her outburst, though, had already done damage. The jury watched her not with sympathy this time, but with suspicion. Her mask of innocence had shattered. Laura seized the moment. She rose slowly, her voice smooth as silk. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you just witnessed it yourselves. The rage, the lies, the manipulation. Rachel Miller is not a victim. She is a master manipulator who will twist anyone, even her own surgeon, to fit her game. The judge adjourned for recess. As I was escorted out of the courtroom, I locked eyes with Rachel. She glared at me, her face twisted with fury, her voice low and venomous. This isn't over, she hissed. If I go down, I'm taking you with me, and your parents too. Her words were like acid. My parents. That night in my cell, fear crawled over me like 1,000 spiders. Rachel was desperate now. Desperate people were dangerous. And if she couldn't win in court, she would try another way. The next morning, I found out how serious she was. Because when the courtroom doors opened and the trial was about to continue, there was an empty seat in the audience, my father's. And the police walked in with grim faces, pulling my lawyer aside. Something had happened to him. The moment I saw the police whispering to Laura, my blood went cold. My father's seat, empty. My mother's hands twisting nervously in her lap. Something was wrong. Laura turned to me, her face pale. She leaned close, her voice a strained whisper. Emily, your father's been attacked. The words punched the air from my lungs.
What?
They found him this morning near the garage. He was unconscious, badly beaten. He's in the hospital right now. My heart stopped. My father, my rock, my protector, lying broken? I shook my head, refusing to believe it.
No.
No, he was fine last night. He walked me out after court. He was fine. But deep down, I knew. Rachel's warning echoed in my mind like a curse. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. And your parents too. My chest tightened. Rage burned hotter than my fear. Even locked in custody, Rachel's reach stretched far enough to hurt the people I loved most. The judge called court to order, but I couldn't focus. My eyes blurred, my body trembled. I wanted to run, to be at my father's side, but the chains on my wrists kept me anchored. All I could do was sit there, helpless, while Rachel smirked from across the room. Laura noticed it too. She whispered urgently, "Don't let her see you break. That's what she wants." I tried. God knows I tried. But the images in my head, my father lying in a hospital bed, tubes in his arms, his face swollen with bruises, were too much. The prosecutor, Clark, stood to continue questioning Rachel. But the air in the courtroom shifted the second she opened her mouth. Rachel was different today. Not tearful, not fragile. Cold. Sharp. Dangerous. She leaned into the microphone, her voice low, steady, chilling. "You all think Emily's the victim. You think she's innocent. But she's not. She's a liar. And if you don't believe me, ask her father. Ask him why he kept quiet all these years. Ask him why he knows the truth." Gasps rippled through the room. My stomach dropped. What was she doing? Dragging my father into this? Laura sprang up. "Objection, Your Honor. That is speculative and irrelevant." But Rachel kept going, her eyes locked on mine. "He knows. He knows she isn't the saint everyone thinks she is. And soon, everyone else will know too." The gavel slammed. Enough. The jury will disregard that last statement. But they wouldn't. I could see it in their faces, the curiosity, the doubt. Rachel had planted a seed. When recess came, Laura rushed to me. "She's bluffing. Don't let her get in your head." But my hands were shaking. My father lying in a hospital. Rachel spitting venom about him, knowing the truth. It was too connected, too deliberate. She wasn't bluffing. She had something. That night in my cell, I barely slept. My mother visited briefly, her eyes red from crying. "Your father's stable," she whispered. "But they said he may not wake up for a while." Her voice cracked. "Emily, he was carrying something in his pocket when they found him. An envelope. Addressed to you." My breath caught. "Where is it?" She slipped it through the slot in the bars. My hands trembled as I opened it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Inside was a single sheet of paper. My father's handwriting, messy but urgent. "Emily, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me. You need to know the truth about Rachel. She..." The letter stopped mid-sentence. The bottom of the page was smeared with blood. And before I could make sense of it, the prison guard snatched it from my hands. "This is evidence," he barked. "No," I screamed, gripping the bars. "Give it back. That's from my father." But it was gone. And I was left shaking, knowing that whatever secret my father had been trying to reveal, it was powerful enough to get him nearly killed. The next day, when court resumed, Rachel arrived with a smile that chilled me to the bone. And then the judge announced something that shattered the last piece of ground beneath my feet. Due to new evidence submitted overnight, the prosecution has called for an emergency hearing. The new evidence directly involves both the victim and the defendant's father. The courtroom erupted, and I realized Rachel had struck again. The gavel struck, silencing the roar of the courtroom. My heart thundered as the judge's words echoed through my ears. New evidence has been submitted. The court will now hear it. I gripped the edge of the defense table, my knuckles white. Laura leaned close, her whisper sharp as a blade. "Emily, prepare yourself. Whatever this is, it's bad." The prosecutor, Clark, stood tall, a predator savoring his prey. "Your Honor, the prosecution submits into evidence a handwritten letter, allegedly authored by James Carter, father of the defendant." My chest caved in. My father's letter. The bailiff handed the page to the judge, then the jury. I caught a glimpse, my father's handwriting, but not the same as the blood-stained note I held. This one looked cleaner. "Finished." Clark read aloud, his voice dripping with triumph. "Emily forced me to keep her secret. She made me stay quiet about the truth behind Rachel's surgery. Emily wasn't saving her best friend. She was experimenting. She wanted control, to feel like a god. She told me if I ever spoke, she would ruin our family. Forgive me. The words stabbed into me like knives. The courtroom gasped, whispers cutting through the air. My mother collapsed into sobs in the audience. My vision blurred with rage and disbelief. That's a forgery, I screamed, leaping to my feet. My father would never write that. Never. The bailiff pushed me back into my seat. The judge pounded the gavel. Order. Order. Clark smirked, circling the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have proof, not just from Rachel Miller, but from Emily's own father, that she is guilty. This is not a case of loyalty gone wrong. This is a case of manipulation, cruelty, and a desperate attempt to play God. Laura shot up, her voice steel. Your Honor, we dispute the authenticity of this letter. We request handwriting analysis and forensic examination. But Clark cut her off. Analysis has already been conducted. The results confirm it's authentic. The words hit me like a punch.
Authentic? How?
My father had barely been conscious. He couldn't have written something like that. Unless someone forged it with his handwriting samples. Rachel. I turned toward her. She sat calm, composed, a smile tugging at her lips. When our eyes met, she mouthed two words that made my blood run cold. Checkmate, Emily. The jury's faces told the story. Doubt was gone. They were convinced. Rachel had them wrapped around her finger. During recess, Laura grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. We're running out of moves. She's 2 steps ahead. If we don't find a way to expose her tonight, tomorrow's verdict will destroy you. I nodded, though my mind was spinning. My father's unfinished letter, the one the guard took, was the real truth. The forgery Rachel slipped into evidence was the lie. If only I could prove it, but I was trapped, chained, powerless. That night in my cell, I sat shaking, rage and despair tearing me apart. Then the guard who had confiscated my father's blood-stained letter passed by my bars. For a second, his hand brushed his pocket, and I saw it, the envelope. He still had it. I jumped to my feet, gripping the bars. Please, I begged, my voice breaking. That's mine. My father's words. It proves my innocence. He paused. His eyes shifted nervously. Then he whispered, almost too low to hear. I know. Before I could reply, he slipped away into the shadows. The next morning, I waited, heart pounding. But that guard never returned. Instead, 2 officers came. They opened my cell, their expressions grim. Emily Carter, one of them said, you're being transferred. Effective immediately. Transferred? To where? The officer didn't answer. They cuffed me, dragged me down a long corridor, out into the cold. And there, waiting in a black van with tinted windows, was Rachel. Not in handcuffs, not in prison clothes, smiling. Hello, Emily, she said sweetly. Ready for the road trip? The doors slammed shut, and I realized Rachel had just taken the game outside the courtroom. The van rattled down a deserted road, the air thick with gasoline and secrets. My wrists were shackled, but my eyes never left Rachel. She sat across from me, elegant in a silk dress, as if this were just another party and not my kidnapping. You're probably wondering why I didn't just let the trial finish, she said, twirling a strand of hair like a queen board of her crown. But that would have been too predictable. I don't just want you behind bars, Emily. I want you erased. Her voice was calm, but her words shook me to the bone. Rachel, why? My voice cracked. I gave you my kidney. I saved your life. You were my sister. Why are you doing this? Her eyes narrowed, venom gleaming in the dim light. Because you saved me, she hissed. Because everyone called you the hero, not me. Because no matter what I did, I could never outshine perfect Emily Carter, the girl who gave everything. So I took the one thing you could never take back, your name, your freedom, your future. And now your life. The van screeched to a halt. The doors flung open. The guards, her men, not officers, dragged me out into the freezing night. We stood before an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, its windows broken, its walls covered in rust. Inside, the stench of mold and oil choked the air. A single chair sat in the center, ropes coiled around it. They shoved me into it, tying me down. Rachel circled me like a predator, her heels clicking on the concrete. "Tonight," she whispered, leaning close, "is the anniversary of the day you saved me. How poetic that it will also be the day you die." I struggled against the ropes. "If you kill me, they'll know. They'll come after you." She laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, Emily, haven't you been paying attention? Everyone already thinks you're guilty. When they find your body, it will only prove you couldn't live with what you did. A tragic suicide." Her words stole the breath from my lungs. This wasn't just revenge. This was obliteration.
But then a sound.
A creak. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. My heart nearly stopped. It was the guard, the one who had taken my father's letter. In his hand, clutched tightly, was the blood-stained note. "Rachel Miller," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "This ends tonight." Rachel froze, her smile faltering. "You don't know what you're doing," she spat. "Oh, I do," he replied, lifting the letter. "I was there when your so-called evidence was planted. I kept the real letter. And it tells the truth, that Emily is innocent, and her father died protecting her." Hope surged through me like fire. Rachel's eyes turned wild. She lunged at him, a knife flashing in her hand. The guard struggled, the blade slicing his arm. The letter fluttered to the floor. I screamed, thrashing against the ropes until my wrists burned raw. The guard kicked Rachel back, the knife clattering across the floor. It slid toward me. Heart racing, I twisted, stretched, fingers brushing the blade. Just inches closer until finally I gripped it. With one desperate move, I cut through the ropes. Rachel saw too late. I stood, the knife in my hand, my entire body shaking with rage and adrenaline. "It's over, Rachel," I panted. She laughed again, blood on her lips, eyes wild. "No, Emily, it's never over. If you kill me, you'll become exactly what they already believe you are, a murderer. And if you don't, I'll keep coming. I'll never stop until you're nothing." Her words echoed through the warehouse. I stood frozen, the knife trembling in my hand, the truth heavy in my chest. I could end it right here, stab her, finish it, silence her forever. Or I could choose differently and let the world see who she really was. For a moment, the silence was deafening. The guard bleeding, Rachel smirking, my heart pounding like a war drum. Then sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. Officers stormed the building, guns drawn. Rachel's smirk finally faltered. The guard lifted the letter high. "Here, the real evidence." Two officers tackled Rachel, dragging her screaming to the ground. "You'll regret this, Emily," she shrieked. "I swear, you'll regret it." I collapsed to my knees, the knife slipping from my hand. Tears blurred my vision as Laura rushed in, wrapping her arms around me. "It's over," she whispered. "It's finally over." But as Rachel was dragged away, her eyes locked onto mine. Burning. Promising. And in that instant I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of a war.